Today we're learning about our food and water source. Now when I say source, I don't mean the source that you put on your food. Source means where did you get something from. So a food source is where we get our food from. We've already had a look at animals and we know that they make their habitat where they can find all the things they needed to survive. So that includes their food source. Let's have a look at some animals. Here we've got the wombat that we've already learnt likes to eat grass. And this is a koala that likes to eat eucalyptus leaves. But did you know that they only eat plants? They never eat anything but grass or the eucalyptus leaves. So they're called herbivores. And here's a dingo, and the dingo likes to eat small animals. And here's an orca, it likes to eat seals and other animals. So because they only eat other animals, they're called carnivores. Now, Bilby here likes to eat both plants and small animals, and so does the emu. It eats plants and insects. So because they can eat both, they're known as omnivores. Now, what about people? Well, people are very adaptable. We can eat dairy, we can eat fruit and vegetables, we can eat grains, and we can eat other animals. So we're called omnivores. So even if you choose not to eat meat, you only eat fruit and vegetables, you are still an omnivore because you can. Okay, so where does all that food come from? Well, I wouldn't be surprised if you thought that the food comes from the supermarkets. But the supermarkets need to get their food from somewhere, so all the fruit and vegetables need to be grown and all the meat products need to be raised. So let's have a look. Did you know that an orchard is a farm where fruit trees grow? Now some fruit is grown on vines or small shrubs and they're usually called plantations, so something like this strawberry farm. Now we can eat the fruit whole, just like we often do, but sometimes the fruit gets made into something else, like this fruit juice or the jam. Okay, now this farm is a giant lettuce farm. You can see there's rows and rows of lettuce and it goes a long way. It's a very big farm. Farms like this are where lots of fruit and vegetables are grown, and these usually supply the supermarkets. Now some people do grow their own vegetables in their backyard and there are smaller farms that might supply farmers markets, but the fruit and vegetables that go to the supermarkets usually come from really big farms. And here's another farm that is growing tomatoes by the looks of it, and everyone's picking them. And this is how rice is grown. So you can see that the rice, all we can see of the rice here is the green leaves, but what happens in the end is the rice looks like this. This is how we buy it in the supermarket. So this bowl of lettuce, all of the things in this bowl of salad, I should say, have all come from a farm at some point. And here's some tomatoes that have been also turned into tomato paste. So fruits and vegetables can be turned into other things. So tomato paste, sauces, soups. Now this farm, instead of growing fruit and vegetables, is raising cattle. And that's what we call cows or sheep when it's a farm. So it's a cattle farm. And this farm here has got lots of chickens on it. So a chicken farm or maybe a duck farm would be called poultry. Now from these animals, we can get other things. So from cows, we can get cheese and milk and yogurt. And from hens, we can get eggs. But we can also eat the actual animals themselves. So that's what chicken and this beef is. But we haven't forgotten about fish. Most of the fish that's in the supermarkets comes from fishing like this. This is a giant ship and behind it's a big net and it's called a trawler. That net is catching lots of fish. But then some fish is kept in farms. So these round things look like pools and that's where the fish are farmed. And this type of setup is called a fishery. So all the fish that you see in the supermarket or in the fish shop would have come from one of these places. So you might be eating your fish whole, but some of the fish gets turned into things like fish fingers. Now what about our water? We have learnt that water is one of the needs. Well, did you think it came from a tap or a bottle? I would forgive you if you did. But actually all the water in Sydney comes from Warragamba Dam. Now this is a picture of Warragamba Dam from the air. That big concrete structure there is damming the Warragamba River. So behind it all of the water is building up, and that is where everyone in Sydney gets their water from. Here's a picture of the river that goes behind Warragamba Dam. Now years ago, before the dam was made, this would have been a small little river, but when they dammed the river, all the water started building up and it started to flood the valley. So that's where all the water comes from Sydney, and this is one of the biggest dams in the world. Here's a map of Sydney, and you can see that Warragamba Dam isn't actually very far from Wentworthville. So here's Wentworthville on the map, just near that love heart, and here's Warragamba Dam. So it's somewhere that you could go for a day out if you wanted to. But it still seems a long way away to get the water from there to us. So how does that happen? Well, it comes through these giant pipes. Now this pipe would be taller than me. So all the water comes from Warragamba Dam down towards where Wentworthville is and eventually comes out of our tap like that. Okay, let's have a look at the vocabulary for today. So we've learnt the word source, which means where does something come from. Herbivore, which are animals that only eat plants. Carnivore, that animals that only eat other animals. And an omnivore are animals that eat both plants and animals. An orchard is where fruit trees grow. A plantation is where shrubby type of fruit trees grow. A farm can be for vegetables. It can also be for animals. A fishery is where fish are farmed. And a trawler is a boat that catches fish out in the ocean. And here's the word dam. So we just learned about Warragamba Dam. Okay, your activity for the day. What are you having for lunch? So take a photo or draw your lunch. Then I want you to work out where all the parts of your lunch came from. So you can either write sentences or video yourself talking about it. So let's pretend that you had some sushi today. So I want you to be writing, cucumbers grow on a vine plant and come from a farm, or else you can be telling me about this. Seaweed is a sea plant and it comes from a seaweed farm. Rice is a plant and comes from a rice farm. And this salmon or tuna is a fish that can be found in the sea, and they will be caught by a fisherman or farmed in a fishery. So I hope you've learned something about our food source today.